Hey there, everyone. Welcome to one of my favorite segments in the entire class. This is not in your textbook. This is something that I'm bringing in extra for fun, but I hope you'll enjoy it. I am deeply concerned with the state of our union. I'm very concerned that nobody can seem to talk to one another anymore, that we can't talk about politics at all without getting absolutely irate. So I wanted to share with you a theory called moral foundations theory that can help explain why the political left and right can't seem to see eye to eye, can't even seem to agree on the same facts anymore. So let's take a look. So I'm going to start by giving you a very, very odd scenario. A family's dog was killed by a car in front of their house. They had heard that the dog meat was delicious, and so they cut up the dog's body and cooked it and ate it for dinner. Nobody saw them do this. What I want to ask you is this right or wrong? So, unfortunately, we are not together, and I don't know what you've said, but I've given this talk a number of times, and I will report to you that I would say maybe a third of people will say that it's okay, and maybe 2/3 of people will say it's wrong. And if I ask, the people who say it's okay will say, well, you know, nobody was hurt. The dog was already dead, and so why not? Lots of people eat dog meat around the world, and nobody was harmed by this. And then the people who say this was wrong usually have a hard time articulating. They're just like, that's just wrong. It's gross. And don't know quite what to say about why they think it's wrong. Let me give you another scenario. This one's worse. A man goes to the supermarket once a week and buys a chicken. But before cooking the chicken, he has sexual intercourse with it. Then he cooks it and eats it. So worse, right? And so if I ask a group of people, is this right or wrong, I would say you'll get maybe 3 or 4 out of 30 will say that it's okay, maybe as many as 5, and then most people will say that it's wrong. The people who say that it's okay will again say nobody was hurt. The chicken was not alive. Nobody was hurt. Nobody knows that he did it. Nobody was wronged, and so it's okay. And again, the people who say this was wrong will tend to kind of just say, well, that's just disgusting, and it's just wrong. And they, again, really don't quite have the words to explain it. So the difference between these two scenarios tends to be kind of mirror Westerners versus the rest of the world, so to speak. Westerners tend to focus on primarily 2 of the 5 moral foundations that have been identified, and that's care, harm. Is it hurting someone else? If it's not hurting someone else, it's okay. And then they also tend to focus on fairness. Is it fair for everybody? If it's fair for everybody, then it's okay. But the rest of the world operates with a few other moral foundations, and one of those is purity, or sometimes called sanctity, as opposed to degradation. And so they would say it's not okay. Well, some cultures eat dog meat and would say it's okay. But if a culture does not eat dog meat, they might say that there was something, and really this is probably what Westerners are thinking. They just don't quite have the words for it. Something like, the dog is your friend, and so there's something kind of impure, or it violates sanctity in some way to eat your pet. And then the purity thing is also coming into play with the chicken one, that there's something impure about it. If you go to the West, a lot of people will say this is okay, and a lot of people will say this is okay. But if you go to the East, almost nobody will, unless their culture eats dog meat. This was reflected in Penn versus the working class in Philadelphia. The guy whose theory this is, John Haidt, is a social psychologist at the New York Stern School of Business right now. He was studying at Penn, and he went to the students at Penn, which is a very elite university, and asked them a lot of these questions. And most of the students at Penn would say, it's fine for the man to eat the chicken, have sex with it, and then eat it. And a lot of them would say it's okay for the family to eat the dog. I'll say my students tend to give answers that are a little bit more like the working class in Philadelphia. The working class in Philadelphia, when he would go and ask them that, he just went a few blocks outside of Penn, and he would ask them these questions, and they were absolutely horrified. They're like, that's disgusting. I can't believe you're even asking me that. And when he said, well, why is it not okay? They really didn't know what to say. They didn't have an answer. They just knew in their gut it was absolutely wrong. So here's the thing, guys. We are pre-wired for morality. This research shows that we come into the world with some basic moral intuitions. If you thought it was disgusting and wrong to have sex with a chicken but didn't know quite why, that was because you're wired up for morality and your instinct said it was probably wrong. But our culture doesn't talk about that very much, and so you didn't have the words for it. So we come into the world pre-wired for morality. There's probably 5, maybe a 6th moral foundation. And we should really think of these moral intuitions as innate and instinctive, more like your gut or your emotion. Haidt uses the analogy of an elephant and a rider. He says that our moral intuitions are the elephant and we're the rider. And so if somebody says a guy buys a chicken, has sex with it, and then eats it, most of us, our moral intuitions will immediately begin to sway. Imagine that elephant turning all of a sudden, and the rider is just going to follow along, right? So we have this immediate gut feeling of what's right or wrong, and then only after we have the immediate gut reaction do we begin to call upon our mind to formulate an argument. We don't formulate the argument in our mind to come up with a decision. Our gut, or the elephant, our intuition, makes the decision instantaneously. Is this right or wrong? And then we begin to argue for the position that we leaned toward to begin with. So keep that in mind when you're arguing with somebody. This drives me crazy, actually, because I'm very analytical. I'm very much up here. If I want to convince somebody I'm right, I don't want to appeal to their emotion and their gut. I want to convey the best argument I can, and I want to win on the facts and the argumentation. But that's probably not the way to win people over to your side. Probably not. So Haidt says that he's identified 6 moral foundations. Care harm. This is feeling the pain of others, not wanting to hurt people, being kind to other people. Fairness cheating, which is getting what you work for. Loyalty betrayal, which is loosely called sacrifice for the group. Authority subversion, which is deference to legitimate authority and respect for tradition. Sanctity degradation, which is living nobly, living with sanctity and living with purity. And then the last one he is kind of working on, this is liberty oppression, the freedom to choose for yourself. So I'm going to walk through each of these a little bit more slowly and flesh them out. And then for the discussion board this week, we're going to have you guys think about a few different hot button issues of the day. And what I'm going to want you to do is identify what is the left's position on this issue and which foundations are they using, and then tell me what is the right's stance on the issue and which foundations are they using. The goal here is not to win the argument. The goal here is to truly understand where your side and the other side is coming from, so that hopefully we can understand each other a little bit better. So let's first think about care harm. 70% of Western morality is based on care. This is driven by our sensitivity to our children's suffering, and then it's extended today to innocent animals, victims of genocide, baby seals. So you can see here mother and baby, and she's very right. You see all that synchrony, all that eye contact. You can tell she's going to protect this baby with her life. Same thing over here, holding on to baby, protecting the baby with her life. And So we are very sensitive to our children's suffering, and then we become concerned about those who are weaker or smaller than us. Now, in today's society, we will often extend this foundation to innocent animals. So if you see puppies, I just read a story the other day in the news. A guy dropped off his German Shepherd in the middle of nowhere in Dallas and drove off, and there was a video camera of it. Even though it's kind of I guess it was on a road, and there must have been a camera nearby. And so there's video of this guy doing this. And everybody is just up in arms. How could you do this to this innocent animal? It's also extended to victims of genocide. Baby seals. When I was a kid, clubbing baby seals was a thing that people did. I really don't know why. I can't figure that out. But people were very up in arms about the baby seals. On the right side of the aisle, and when I say right and left, when I say right, I mean people who are generally conservative, and people who are conservative tend to think that there's wisdom in the established traditions that has developed over time, and that we shouldn't rush into big changes. That's maybe a little summary of conservatives. That's more aligned with the Republican Party. The left is the liberal, or sometimes termed the progressive side, where these are people who see a lot of problems with society and want to change them, and use the wisdom and intelligence of experts to enact sort of big sweeping changes. On the right, care tends to be aimed at those who sacrifice for the group, and on the left, it tends to be aimed outward. So if you drive up to your Kroger and you see a bumper sticker that says "Care for our veterans," that person is almost certainly going to be on the right side of the aisle, a more conservative person. If instead you see a bumper sticker that says "Wipe out the genocide in Darfur," that is almost certainly somebody who is on the left, who is more Democrat, because the right tends to focus care harm a little bit more on the in-group, and then the left tends to focus it more outwardly. Okay, let's think about the next one. This is fairness and cheating. And remember, care harm is 70% of Western morality. And that's true for both the right and the left, that's a very, very important part. So fairness cheating, we evolved a set of moral emotions that make us play tit for tat, which helps both us and other people. So tit for tat means that if I take soup to my neighbor when he's sick, then he will bring me brownies after he gets well. Or if I loan my friend a leaf blower, then my friend will help me out on another day. So there are other ways to go, though. One way is to be kind of reciprocal and play tit for tat, and that will keep things fair. There are other strategies, though, that people can engage in society. You could help anyone who needs it. So whoever needs the help, you just offer it. Or you could have a strategy of take but don't give. So you take and take and take, but you never give back. So you've got equal fairness, reciprocity. You've got give all the time but don't take, and then you've got take but don't give. Those latter two tend not to be very effective. People who help anyone who needs it without taking anything back tend to be walked all over and taken advantage of. And then these are the people who are taking advantage, and people will eventually kick them out. So both of those strategies end up hurting us. So this tit for tat thing tends to work well. Now, fairness is understood a little bit differently on the left and the right. The left tends to be more interested in equality of outcome. They tend to want pretty similar outcomes for all people. They're bothered by income inequality, that there are people who are at the very top and people are at the very bottom, and want there to be a more equal outcome. The right tends to be more interested in proportionality or equality of opportunity. So proportionality means if I work 100%, then I should get a lot of returns, a lot of stuff, a lot of payment, whatever. But if I don't work very much, then I should probably get less of what's out there. Excuse me. So both the left and the right are very interested in fairness and cheating, and they both want to get rid of the cheating, and they want everything to be fair. But the left tends to be interested in everybody is fairly similar in terms of the outcome, whereas the right is interested in was the outcome proportional to what you put in. Okay, the third one is loyalty betrayal. Loyalty is part of our innate drive to form coalitions, to know who is on your team and who is not, so that we can fend off attacks from rival groups. So you can see that they are in a pack. They have formed a coalition. They know who's on the team, and then they will fight whoever is against them and trying to take their territory. And we do that as well. We form coalitions. This is very much in-group, out-group. We form coalitions to fight off the rival groups. The worst punishments in history were reserved for betrayers. So think about the Quran says that the worst punishment is for those who betray the religion. And think about the Inferno, Dante's Inferno. The worst punishment is for Judas, the betrayer of Jesus. So here's where things really begin to diverge. We already saw some differences earlier between the left and the right, and here it begins to diverge quite a bit. The left tends to be hostile to loyalty as practiced by the right. The right tends to think about loyalty much more than the left does, and their loyalty tends to be focused toward the nation. So I'm loyal to my country, I'm loyal to my in-group, and the left tends to be hostile to this kind of loyalty. The left tends to prefer the idea of the global citizen as opposed to, say, the American citizen, or the Indian citizen, or the Ugandan citizen. They are interested in nations and are skeptical of the idea of a global citizen. So loyalty betrayal is why we do stuff like this. If we're not out hunting in packs and very few of us are doing this, then instead we replace that instinct and that drive with this kind of thing, where and that's really what sports are. Sports is loyalty betrayal. We know who's on our team and who's not. We fight the rival groups, and we punish those who betray. Okay, the next one is authority subversion. All mammals have dominance hierarchies. A dominance hierarchy means that somebody's at the top and other people are at the bottom. You can see that this man sees this man as above him, and he's bowing. You can see that this guy is the alpha dog, and he is laying over on his back and exposing his belly to indicate, I recognize that you are the alpha. He is recognizing that he is the alpha. Authority should not be confused with power. These are not the same thing. Authority is legitimate authority because you are capable of leading and providing something to the group. Authority can be used with power to protect and to prevent violence, which can erupt in the absence of authority. So let me illustrate this a little bit. Let's think about let's not think about dogs. Let's think about chimpanzees, because they have very, very clear dominance hierarchies, and they're kind of prone to violence as well. So the alpha male, a bunch of the chimpanzees will fight each other until an alpha male emerges, and then there's usually a bunch of beta males. And that alpha male is now the authority. He has won the authority. He is at the top of the dominance hierarchy. He probably also has power. But more so, others defer to him because he has the authority, because he won some battles earlier. His position of authority prevents violence, because he will go and prevent the beta males who are still in the troop from fighting, and he will prevent them from harming other chimpanzees in the group. And if for some reason he dies or goes away, there would be a power vacuum, an authority vacuum, and in the absence of authority, violence tends to erupt. We saw that, you can see that throughout history. I won't go into it any further than that, but take away the authority and you get violence until somebody is an authority. Current triggers for the authority subversion moral foundation include acts that subvert traditions, institutions, or values that provide stability. So we don't tend to, physically fight each other in our society for dominance, although certainly some people do, maybe gangs, maybe high schools. Instead, what we might try to do is subvert the authority of the institution. So we might protest or rally, or we might say the president of the university should not be there anymore because he's an illegitimate authority or she's an illegitimate authority, and so we want her gone. This is the idea of authority subversion. Again, this is one where the left and the right tend to diverge. The left doesn't tend to like this one at all. It tends to view most authority as a lot of authority as suspect. But the right does tend to value legitimate authority. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This is sanctity and degradation. So this picture is a famous illustration or a famous painting. This is the Virgin Mary, and you can see that she is surrounded by these big stones and then guarded, and then has a moat, and then lions are protecting it. And gosh, I'm blanking on the name of this, but it's got something to do with the title is something about purity. All of these structures are protecting the Virgin Mary's purity, sexual purity specifically. So the origin, though, of this foundation, it's typically thought of as sexual purity, historically speaking. But the original intent of the foundation probably was the need to avoid pathogens, parasites, and other physical threats. And of course, there is something to that when it comes to sexual purity. Sexually transmitted diseases can spread around when we are promiscuous, and so that certainly is part of avoiding physical threats. It represents the idea that we can attain virtue by what we do with and put into our bodies, and so that the idea of having sex with the dead chicken and then eating it, that's a sanctity degradation issue. That's like, wow, there's something degrading about having sex with a chicken that was dead in the supermarket, and then there's something degrading about then eating it. So this is the idea that some things are sacred. A flag for some people is sacred, and for other people it's not. The cross is sacred for some people and not for others. Some heroes are sacred and others are not. Some ideals are sacred and others are not. Some people will not let, there's actually, it's part of the flag protocol that the American flag should not ever touch the ground. If you're not a person who would ever throw the Bible in a trash can or on the ground, if you're a person who would not ever speak ill of your hero, who venerates a cross, that is all sanctity degradation. And this really binds us together into moral communities. If a bunch of people all agree that the Bible or the flag or the cross or this particular person should be treated as sacred, then the whole community aims toward that, circles around it, forms a community around it, and now they're bonded into an in-group. These days, you will sometimes see sanctity degradation come out in terms of the environment or in terms of what we put in our bodies. So, some people are very big on my food should be pure and organic, and I only drink purified water. I know somebody, a 21-year-old who still doesn't have a driver's license, and that is because of an ideal that we should not be polluting the earth with our nasty carbon. And so it's a bit of a form of protest. That's sanctity degradation. So this is the idea of this. The right tends to hold fast to the more traditional idea of sanctity degradation in terms of what we put in our bodies as far as sexual mores go. The left, when they are concerned with this one, it'll tend to be about the environment, or it'll tend to be about what we put in our bodies in terms of food. Okay, the next one is liberty oppression. And this is the last one. This foundation is about the feelings of reactance and resentment that people feel toward those who dominate them and restrict their liberty. This is the idea that we don't want anybody oppressing us. The intuitions are often in tension with those of authority. So you can see that, right? Some people think there should be an authority and some people think there should be liberty. The hatred of bullies and dominators motivates people to come together in solidarity to oppose and take down the oppressor. So when I teach now on authority, I sometimes wonder if this is shifting a little bit, if maybe the people who used to be interested in liberty are now becoming somewhat authoritarian, and that people who used to be less authoritarian or more authoritarian are becoming less so. I don't know. It's all very, it's so, everything is so mixed up right now. It's a little bit hard to think about it. So I've mentioned a few times that the left and the right are using different moral foundations, and that really answers the question why the left and the right don't see eye to eye anymore and don't necessarily even have the same facts in hand. So this is showing liberals here and how much they endorse these foundations. So this is harm, that's fairness, authority, in-group, and purity. So we only have the 5. This is politically moderate people, and this is people who are conservative. So this is more Republican, and this is more Democrat. So harm and fairness are, let's think first of all about this column. For liberals, harm is the highest, and fairness is closest. Okay? But authority, in-group, and purity are almost really not even important at all. That's how Haidt characterizes it, that these are not very important at all. He argues that liberals really only use 2 of the 5 moral foundations. Let's take a look at conservatives, though. Look at that. They're all very, very tightly clustered. And in fact, fairness is just ever so slightly lower than authority, in-group, and purity. I don't remember if he said that there were statistically significant differences between these 2 or not. But he basically says, look, they value these all the same. Whereas liberals really are only valuing these 2 and are not even thinking about these 2 very much at all. So this is based on a sample of 24,000. They have done study upon study upon study looking at this particular topic. This is not the only study. So this is this tells us some things, right? What Haidt argues is that we can think of this like yin and yang, that it's not that the liberals have the right end of it, and it's not that the conservatives have the right end of it. It's that we need both. That's really what he argues, that we need people on the left who are arguing, hey, there's something wrong and we need to fix it and change it right away and make some big sweeping changes because we don't want to hurt people. And that we also, just like with yin and yang, we also need people who are considering authority, in-group, and purity. That this is a valid point of view as well, and that to value only harm and fairness leaves things a little bit unbalanced, and that the concerns about these other factors matter as well. So I'm going to give you a discussion board assignment for this week. Haidt has identified these 6 moral foundations, and I would like for you to pick 2 of these. And if there's a different one, a big hot button issue that you would like to pick, that would be fine. I want you to explain which moral foundation does the left use and which moral foundation does the right use. So let's see. maybe I'll take one that's not on here. Let's take the environment. So I would, if I were writing a discussion post, I would say, I would give the most positive, persuasive version of the left's argument as I could, and then I would identify the foundations used. So I might say something like, the earth is warming as a result of human behaviors, and that will cause death, widespread death and destruction. And so we should quit using gas as an energy source, and instead we should use wind and solar. Okay, so then the moral foundations I would identify there, I would probably first identify care harm, that the worry here is that people will die. I might also use sanctity degradation and say that they're worried about the poisoning of the earth. Now, if I wanted to make the rights position on this one, I might say that the rights position, as far as I know it at this point, is something like this. There is some evidence of small levels of warming that's probably anthropogenic, caused by humans. We are not going to be able to stop the warming without tremendous cost, because we don't have alternate energy systems ready to replace gas at this point. And so if we eliminate gas, then people, especially people in poor countries, will die. We'll lose crops because of the lack of fertilizer, and that more people will die as a result of that. And instead, what we should do is use our creativity and ingenuity to create alternate power sources that are effective, something like nuclear. Okay, so what moral foundation is the right using there? I'm going to again say it's care harm. That they're also concerned about people dying. They're concerned that the prescription from the left, which would be to get rid of gas and lean toward wind and solar, would actually hurt more people than the global warming would in itself. And I think that's about it. You can tell me if you think that it should be something else, a different moral foundation than that. So that's an example of how you would do it. So I want you to pick, you can pick one of these. These tend to be pretty popular among students to think about, or you can pick something else, make an original discussion post, and then comment on two other people's, maybe offering a different point of view. All right. So I hope you enjoyed that. I know that was long, but I think it's really, really useful. I'm going to link a video of John Haidt talking about this theory, and I'll also link his book called Righteous Minds, from which I took a lot of this material. All right. Thank you. Appreciate you, and I wish you well.